Hello, wonderful people of the kingdom of YouTube. Today, we are going to be talking about a particularly exceptional topic because it pertains to a particularly exceptional individual who unfortunately is no longer amongst us today. The protagonist of this video, without further ado, is Aaron Swartz. For those of you who know who I'm talking about, that's wonderful. That's amazing. I just think, there are people out there in this world who have a very firm legacy that they wanted to leave behind. People like Aaron Swartz, who genuinely wanted to do something for the betterment of humanity, for the betterment of the entire world at large. And they really put their heart and soul into it and into their visions. And it just makes sense to remember them, to respect them, to revere them, and to immortalize them, especially if their ideologies are meant for the greater good. Now, for those of you who don't know who Aaron Swartz is, that's perfectly okay. You are at the right place, and we are going to have a great time discussing this person. So let's get right into it. So, who is he, right? Let's come to the big question. Schwartz basically was a programmer, an activist, a political activist. He was an entrepreneur as well. And essentially, by the time he was in his early 20s, he had started a company called Infogami, which then merged on with another company that we now know as Reddit. So very fundamentally, if one were to give a quick intro, he's the co-founder of Reddit. Apart from which, he also has a number of other major projects under his belt. And mind you, he was kind of a child prodigy. So all of what I'm talking about is in his late teens and early 20s. He helped with the development of the RSS feeds, and he also contributed majorly to Creative Commons, which, on behalf of every single content creator on here on YouTube, I have to say, truly a life-changing concept, one that we're all very grateful for. Thank you for the idea of Creative Commons, right? But that's not the point of this particular YouTube video. This was just to give you an introduction of the smarts of this person. So there's no doubt, definitely, that he was truly brilliant. But it's not just that. Like I said, what completely blows my mind about this individual is, although they were primarily at heart a programmer, right? But they were also deeply and sincerely invested in trying to know more about a lot of different topics pertaining to different things that are happening in the world around them. So, be it psychology, behavioral psychology, or sociology, or current affairs, or politics. So, really, this person wanted to keep himself well rounded intellectually and cognitively. And I find that so inspirational as somebody who kind of started this YouTube channel with that very vision or that very idea in mind. That's something that resonates very strongly with me. And for that, I truly look up to this person. And it's such a shame. I tell you, it's just such a shame that he is no longer with us today. Because I can only imagine what he would have done and contributed to and how many people he would have inspired. But that's, because it's the legacy, like the idea lives on. And that is sufficient to keep people motivated the world over. And so this is me trying to kind of reproduce that idea to you, pass it on essentially, because such ideas are extremely contagious. And when I talk about ideas, one of the ideas that Aaron Swartz very firmly believed in was the concept that knowledge, which happens to be the ultimate form of power, should be free, it should be readily and openly available to everyone, it should be easily accessible.
The idea behind Open Library started out really simple. It spiraled out of control from there, but it started out simple. The idea is one web page per book. Books are such important artifacts. They're the kind of repositories of knowledge in our culture. They're where you go when you have a great idea or a great piece of literature or a great piece of art. You write about it and you publish it in a book and it goes in a library. And it seemed kind of tragic to me that these important cultural artifacts never had a really strong first-class place on the web. They were always, either on a publisher's website if they were in print, or a bookstore's website, or occasionally a couple pages scattered across libraries. But there wasn't a definitive place you could kind of go to find out about a book. And Open Library's goal is to be that place.
So this is kind of what led to the controversy initially. To give you a brief idea of what happened that caused him to take his own life, he hanged himself, like I said, when he was 26. There is, I guess, an online repository of scientific articles that is very rich in terms of the resources that it holds, i.e. publications dating back to several decades, called JSTOR. He ended up downloading millions of documents from the JSTOR website, as a result of which he got in big trouble with the government. Basically, JSTOR kind of dropped their case. They were like, it's fine as long as you step back from the documents. We're not going to press charges against you. But the government did actually, funnily enough, sadly enough, they prosecuted him for that very severely. 35 years in prison and over $1 million in fines. That was a sentence, right? And of course, before the court hearing and everything, he kind of ended up taking his own life as an after like an understandable aftermath because he was under such incredible and tremendous pressure with all of that. However, there are a lot of different directions that I could have taken this video in, but there is something very particular that I wanted to focus on. And that is one very endearing trait of Aaron Swartz, which is basically that he loved reading. He was a voracious reader, which I suspect you have to be. I mean, if you are going to be intelligent and well articulated, and if you want to have opinions about a variety of different things, and you need to keep yourself well informed, the best way to do that is by reading books. I read in an online blog about Aaron that he read up to like 200 books a year, which comes up to like 100 books, 100 books a year, which comes up to like 2 books a week, which I think it's such a terrific number to aspire for. It's just inspirational. I find it inspirational. And considering that that's kind of what this channel is all about, I do want to also talk about it then. So before, I would like to point you to two book related resources. But before I do that, I do have to tell you about this documentary that I watched about Aaron. I think it was last Friday, actually. So yeah, if you have time over the weekend, I'm recording this video on a Friday. I don't know when it's going to be out, but whenever you see this, whenever you have some free time on your hands, do check out this particular brilliantly made documentary called The Internet's Own Boy, The Life of Aaron Swartz, I think, or The Story of Aaron Swartz. I'm going to put the link in the description so you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's available on YouTube for free, so you can just, type in the right keywords and it'll come up. And this was truly emotionally taxing for me because here is a person who had such a promising future. And I remember when watching the documentary, I didn't just tear up, I was bawling my eyes out, right? So a little bit of a disclaimer there for people. And again, that really goes into the depths of sort of the tragic turn of events that led to what it did. Nobody at 26 should have to be under the kind of pressure that he was. And it's very interesting that I feel so strongly about it in a lot of ways. Is also because, and this is the second resource that I want to talk about today, is his blog. It's called Raw Nerve, and it's just, again, freely available online. Just put in the right words and Google will happily pull it up for you. Raw Nerve is essentially, when you read it, it immediately strikes a chord with you because it's in the first person. You're reading it from his perspective and you're looking at the world from his eyes. And it's hard not to feel connected with that. 5 months after he wrote this blog post, he killed himself. But it's so hard to get, even the slightest sort of feeling of either him being psychologically disturbed or depressed in any way. None of that. In fact, it's a very positive, optimistic blog. Very heartfelt, But like I said, it's difficult to then not empathize with somebody when you're reading their literal thoughts. And at this point, I would like to talk about the third resource, which is called Raw Thought, Raw Nerve, Inside the Mind of Aaron Swartz, which is this incredible book. So I think about like 600 pages, if I'm not wrong. But it's basically a compilation of all the different topics that he talked about. And you guys, it just blows my mind to bits at how well read this person was. Just like, I'm like, how is it even possible to be this well read? And he was so young, you know what I mean? He really had all of this knowledge at his fingertips. And the resources, the articles that he wrote is like brimming with all those resources, books that he cites and scientific articles and publications and everything. And I think that that's incredible. If anything, that blog post teaches one how to think. And he writes, he says in one of his blog posts, in order to think, right? And I feel like that is the purpose of this channel. Also, is like to think, to remain active, to be involved in a variety of different things. to keep yourself well informed, and to do something that helps pass on knowledge, and of course, to read, right? That's the bottom line. So now I think that I've talked to you about the most important resources that I had on my mind. I would like to end this video by reading to you. I'm going to read to you from Aaron's own blog post called Raw Nerve. It's one of the first articles on there. Are you ready? Okay. For most of my life, I saw my job as just making good choices. I was the decider, tasked with making the best selection from the options life presented. I could play with this friend or that one, go to this college or that one, take this job offer or the other one. Even my problems I dealt with this way. If someone was annoying me, I'd choose to avoid them. If someone was bugging me, I'd choose to stop thinking about it. I mostly kept my eyes on what was in front of me. But recently, I've started appreciating the virtues of stepping back and trying to see the big picture. Instead of just picking the best option, I try to invent new ones. Instead of just avoiding the stuff that bugs me, should I start making plans to fix them? It's given me a weird feeling. I feel more in control of my life, more able to cope with my problems. I feel like I'm charting my own destiny instead of following some track. It's hard to explain, but it's a feeling like I'm getting stronger, not physically, but psychologically. And it's a good feeling. I feel like I'm growing as a person. So I started wondering, is there more where that came from? I realized I've never stopped to ask whether I could get better at life. After all, in my day job, I'm constantly looking for ways to learn and grow, reading the latest books and articles about the field, talking to other people with similar jobs and hearing what's worked for them. Why aren't I doing the same for life? So at this point, I'm going to take a quick detour, because when he talks about reading articles is also something I wanted to share with you guys. I'm so psyched and so excited about this when I came across this webpage titled A Hacktivist Reading List, Aaron Swartz Recommended Reading. And in here, he has the title followed by a brief description of sort of the books, I guess, that were closest to his heart, that inspired him the most, right? And I'm so happy to have found this because it's like a treasure out there. These are all the more books that now I get to add to my own to-do list. And it's just the way that he talks about them. It's hard not to get affected by that because such excitement is contagious. He says this is a bizarrely delightful little book about one of them. About another author, he says, how can one man have such control over his authorial voice? And then about another book, he goes, damn, this is a good book. So I was telling you about his blog, which I would highly recommend you check out. I'm sorry, right now I'm looking at my laptop. I have a billion tabs open, and I'm just hunting for which particular tab I had his blog on. As you know, there are only two kinds of people in this world: people who have a lot of tabs on and those who don't. Anyway, so instead of an obvious place to go, I have just been finding little bits and pieces in all sorts of strange places. Psychology experiments, business books, philosophy, self-help, math, and my friends. But since there's no community around it, it's hard to discuss it with anyone. Trying to persuade other people to be interested in what you're interested in is a fool's game. Yeah, I agree. I resonate with this sentiment so strongly, it's incredible. So let's go over this one more time. Instead of an obvious place to go, I've just been finding little bits and pieces in all sorts of strange places. Psychology experiments, business books, philosophy, self-help, math, and my friends. Like I said, this right here, to sort of help make sense of the world by taking the reins of knowledge in our own hands, And by having full control over our sources, this is the purpose of this entire YouTube channel, really. But since there's no community around it, it's hard to discuss it with anyone. Now we have a community around it. You and I are part of this amazing, fantastic community. So I figure I'll just start writing about it here and see if anyone cares. Maybe it'll grow into something, but even if it doesn't, at least I'll clarify my thoughts and hopefully get a few good suggestions for further reading. Also, what I'm looking for, by the way. If you have suggestions for further reading, what are you waiting for? Put them in the comments, let me know. I don't have a name for what I'm talking about, or even a good sense of what it is. I'm hopeful that will become clearer with practice. But in the meantime, what's helped you get better at life? At thinking, deciding, working, thinking. Whether it's a gadget or technique, or book or person, I'd love it if you posted what you found most helpful in the comments. But just as descriptions, you guys, as descriptions is just so heartfelt. Hello, beautiful. Oh shit.